Welcome back to She Supply Chains podcast, and we are kicking off season 3. And as part of that, Katie and I are now going to be going live on YouTube. So we're super excited about that. And with that, now we have to have verbal discipline so we don't have to edit everything.
Oof, it's like our season 3 challenge.
It's our challenge. So our social media manager, Crystal, is like, you guys can do it. We can do it. So this is our first go at it. So give us some grace. We have heard from so many of you that you want to know more about us, and we got some wonderful questions from Instagram, from LinkedIn, from our website. So today we're going to flip the script again, and we're going to answer some of those burning questions that you guys have, and you'll get to know more about me and Katie. One day you'll get bored of these, but we'll see.
The questions stop coming in.
They rate really high, which is, I'm always surprised by that. All right, so I'm going to start with Katie with a pretty hard one, I think. I don't know, one of the harder questions. So Katie, as you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, so how can we as individuals, as a community, continue to champion diversity, equity, inclusion within the supply chain industry?
That is a big one to lead off with. Thank you. Here we go. I do think it means that we have to be more intentional about creating those opportunities. I also think working in supply chain, when you think about the number of people that we impact and the number of communities that we impact, and that can be everything from farming communities, manufacturing areas, shipping locations, literally across the globe, you can actually have a massive impact in supply chain, which I think is actually really exciting. And so I think for us to continue to champion diversity, equity, and inclusion, you just have to be intentional about creating those opportunities and making sure that we're advocating for ourselves, for other women, for all communities. And it can't just be about what companies are doing. I love companies championing these things. I always want to work for a company that's doing something like that. But at the end of the day, like, you have to take some ownership, I think, and choose how you want to show up. And this is where I think we can each make a difference. Don't be sorry.
My dog is barking.
This is cheering in the background. She likes this answer.
Issa's like, yes, Katie, yes.
Keep going. So yeah. So in short, I do think we can each make a difference. And I think we just have to be really intentional about how we show up, what we're supporting, what we're saying, what we're doing, how we're following through. And, companies can also be involved in those things, but I really think we each have our own personal accountability to show up in the right way too.
And I do think too that we do in general underestimate. Someone told me, underestimate how much one person or one act or just like our small things that we can do versus waiting for somebody to do it for us. So I love that answer.
All right, your turn.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Last minute exec commercial team request. Do you push back or do you power through?
Ooh, I saw this one and I was like, ooh.
You're like, hold on, that just happened on Friday.
I know, and I'm like, are they listening or not? So what I would tell my team and remind myself is I don't believe we can push back on everything. And I don't think we should. But I also do think it is our responsibility to make sure that we are leading and guiding and using our expertise to bring that to the table. Otherwise, why are we there? One of the things I will say that has really been helpful for me in my supply chain brain and leadership role is immersing myself in our consumers and customers, because I do think then you have a better lens of the things that maybe we should power through and do, and that we really do need from a business strategy perspective, or other ones that it's like, maybe we shouldn't do that. But I also would say, I always tell my team, it's like, saying no isn't a bad thing. Escalating isn't a bad thing. I think it's the how we do it, to be quite frank. I think I always tell people that most people want to feel heard and listened to. I think when we can come with the quick no, where they know we haven't even, where we're like,
we didn't even
listen.
Sentence.
And we know that, like, we have the folder where we tried this 10 years ago and it didn't work, and what's going to be, we have the whole, like, we just throw up the barriers, and they know that. So I do think, like, really listening. I also think asking yourself, what is different? Was it a time and place thing? Is there a market dynamic that's different? Is there a category difference? And then maybe the answer should be yes today. But I don't think we can always say yes and then take all the brunt of that and then get into like, we're burned out. We're not, putting up the right, I think, boundaries around the resourcing and requirements. And then I also try to ask myself, like, what is, we call it apply appropriate effort, but like, how much do we have to do versus how much do we think to get to a good answer or next step?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not as much work as we think, and maybe we can get to a quick yes or no with a little bit. But sometimes I'm also like, hey, to get to this next answer, it's going to take a ton of work, and is it worth it as well? So I don't think it's a always push back and not always push through, but it comes up all the time. When I saw that question, I was like, oh, they work in supply chain because that is comes up all the
Yeah.
time.
And I like how you frame that up too, because it comes back to, do you understand the why? Right? Like
hmm
what's going on, the why, because that could change our answer. It could change the amount of work or effort it takes to meet the need. Yeah. It's
We have to
asking
have our
why.
business hat, not always our supply chain hat.
Yeah.
Okay. Katie, what outdated supply chain practice deserves a big no more stamp on it? So what are things that you think are common in supply chain today that we just need to stop doing?
To me, this one made me laugh, like the no more stamp. And I was reflecting on this one, and I think something that literally I have to, Courtney and I call it our Botox face. I have to put it
Mm,
on when I hear this. It's like, well, it's always been done that way. And like
mm,
literally I like my jaw clenches and I want to roll my eyes because it gets in the way of progress and innovation.
mm.
Now I do pause and I ask and I try and understand the why, but I think if we immediately throw up that, well, it's just always been done that way, you're not opening yourself up to possibility. You're not opening yourself up to problem solving or what could be. And the answer, honestly, we might come back and say, look, oh, it's actually this way for a very good reason.
Very good reason.
It could be, human safety. It could be food safety. It could be regulations. There could be some things behind there that you're like, yes, I'm tracking and I understand. But I think that immediate response of, well, it's just always been done that way, I just find that so de-energizing.
Yeah.
And when I think about supply chain, we have problems pop up all the time. And so I think that can be like the exciting part of it if you want to frame it that way. And a chance to improve and make things better than they were before. But you can't do that if you're constantly in this place of like shrugging your shoulders and it's always been done that
So I
way.
actually had a really good mentee conversation about this, differently though, about career. And she was just like, why is everybody trying to not force, but like be very specific about how I can get to different levels in the organization that I'm in? And I told her it is a little bit of, I think, no, I do think there's, to your point, value. So I think playing experiences, they're just highly valuable. I think it makes you a
Mhm.
better leader. So I think that kind of, you need to walk in the snow because we did, I think that makes sense to me. That's Courtney's opinion. But I also told her that I do think some of it is like, we did all of these things and we believe that we're awesome. So we believe for you to be awesome, you need to go do these things or to gain that credibility
Yeah.
or the skill
Yeah.
set. So I do think we as leaders need to be more open to different paths.
Hmm.
Because to me, it's about the skill set and the
Yeah.
capabilities you're building. But I do think sometimes, depending on who you're talking to, people have a very specific view of this is a way that you, or the skills. And I get that question of breadth versus depth. And when do you get it? And
Hmm.
I'm like, can you do your job? And what are the capabilities of the next job that you need? And the names of jobs change in the scope and scale. So I'm like, it's not going to look perfect for everybody, but I do think that's a hard one sometimes.
Yeah. And I think reflecting, right, on the why we're pushing those things, just like you said, is it because it's like, oh my gosh, this experience truly is differential? Or is it just because like, I got it, it was a badge of honor and you need to do it too, right? And just being mindful of those things. Okay. Another one. I feel like you're getting all the ones on like the supply chain tough questions. Here we go. How do you coach your teams to say no in a world where every supply chain seems to be on
On fire.
fire?
Yeah, and I talked about this a little bit in the previous answer. I do think it's a very specific skill set. I think you talked about this, understanding the why behind the no. And then I also think I call it, whenever I'm meeting with my leader or my team, like one of the topics in our one-on-ones we cover is like, what are our priorities and what have I done for you lately? Like the Janet Jackson, like, what have you done for me lately? So you always want to make sure that you are aligned to whatever you are working on in the next 30, 60, 90 days, that your leaders are aligned to that. And there will be some short-term fires, but you should also have some things on that list that are in the medium to long term, because you can't just be in the day-to-day. And I also tell people you should always remind people of what are your accomplishments and deliverables within the last, 30 days. And so I say all that to say that to me, it's about the how and the no. I think you don't want to overuse the no. And then also, I tell my team, use me for the no. Like, you don't need to always be the bad guy, bad woman. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need that. Like, let me fight the fight for you, and don't wait too late on that. Like, if you need me to come in and just support you through it, even if I'm just coaching you in the back through it, don't feel like you're out there by yourself, like fighting the good battle, because it can be exhausting. But yeah, and I think really being honest about your true capacity. I find that supply chain and engineering or technical people are very dutiful and diligent and hate to
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm not meeting someone's expectations. But sometimes it's okay to say I'm at my max and I can't. And you really shouldn't be at your max, because you do need time for the surprises and development and other things. And Katie and I talk about this, like really spending our Fridays on going to trainings or developing yourself, time to think, time to put a strategy together. Like, I was looking at this thing on Instagram today around like how Warren Buffett spends his time, and a lot of it is reading and learning. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not acting and doing. And so I think as a supply chain, we have to spend the time doing, but we also should be like educating ourselves. We also should be thinking strategically about where we should be working. You can't just be in the now, because you're going to miss something.
Yeah. Because if you're not looking out ahead, like I don't know who else is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, you have a magic wand. What supply chain challenge would you fix forever and why?
This one was actually pretty easy. When I saw this, I was like,
Really?
end to end. Well, I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of things in the world to fix. But with a supply chain hat on, I would say end to end visibility. I really believe that if people have the right data and the right information, they're going to make the right decision. And I think sometimes in supply chain, I think you said that we're very diligent, we're very dutiful. And so we are like optimizing the heck out of whatever area we work in without maybe understanding, well, what's that end to end
Mm,
impact? And
yeah.
that's not just on the end to end supply chain. I'm talking about like all the way through to the consumer and all the way back to like where your raw materials came in from. And I really think that if we understood the full maybe impact of all of our decisions that we make, we'd be smarter, we'd eliminate a lot of waste, we'd be working on some maybe higher level problems and rather than getting sucked up in like this day to
Yeah.
day firefighting. And I think it's coming. I think with AI and
I do too.
everybody's
Yeah.
data getting in the cloud, like I do, I really feel like this is going to be coming because you're seeing pockets of it here
Yeah.
and there. But I really feel like if people have the right information at the right time, they will do the right thing. But that's hard to do if
Hmm.
you can only see like your small piece of a bigger puzzle.
Okay. I didn't think that was going to be your answer. I like it. I had no idea what I thought, but that wasn't what I thought
I
you
was
were
like,
going
well,
to
what
say.
did you think I was going to
I
say?
don't
Now I want to
know.
know.
Something else. I don't
Okay.
know.
All right. This one is if your career had a bullwhip effect moment, what was it?
So I had full transparency. I had a Google Bullwhip effect, because I was like, I don't know if that's not a Southern thing.
It's an old I remember like learning that about this in my MBA program a long time ago. It's like an old supply chain term. Yeah.
I was not versed on that. So, anyways, once I looked it up, I was like, I want to make sure I'm answering this appropriately.
You're like, and are we still allowed to say that today?
No, I just was like, I feel like this is a trap. I don't know what this is, and I'm gonna figure that out. Okay, so I have one personal, one professional. So I would say Katie knows this story, and I've shared this before. I think, because I think it's like an accelerator almost. Okay, make sure I'm confirming I understand the question.
It's like yeah, like you don't know what's coming. And so like maybe you over or
Yeah,
under and like you create like a massive,
yeah.
I think of it like a massive peak in my
Okay,
supply
so I'd say
chain.
peak personal that ended up being a professional peak as well. So, many, many years ago, I had failed adoption, had a divorce, and I think those personal events or, things in my
Mm,
life, like, really helped me pinpoint my professional aspirations or just like reflect on my life, I think in general. Perspective. And those events came for me with like a lot of shame and then a lot of just, yeah, it was hard. It was like super hard, like shame and embarrassment. And so then I think from that, I started to really ask myself, because I think before those incidents, if someone told me to move somewhere or do something, I did it. If someone told me this job was a great opportunity, I did it. And I think after that, you put the mirror up and you're like, well, okay, what's really important? And like what's meeting my needs along with the organization's needs. And so I think with that, I tell people like this is where I probably started taking more control over my career and really asking myself, like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to live? What risks am I willing to take? And I think at that point, I think the plant manager role, like in conjunction with all that, I think the plant manager role was my first role where it was like kind of like you own everything. Like I had been an engineer before that, had worked as an engineering manager, and you only cared about like these things. And I know your people are like, this is not connecting, but it will connect. And so we'll take us there. And so I think becoming the plant manager was the first time I was like, to your point, Katie, like I have to understand quality and safety and logistics and HR and you are the face of the community and you're, doing, I was on the United Way board and everyone like you're in a small town. People are looking up to you. I feel like you're like kissing babies, shaking hands, like the whole thing. But I think to your point earlier about diversity and inclusion, like you have a lot of responsibility. I mean, you are providing a lot of jobs in the community, and just it felt like the first time I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I have a big job and this is important. Like I can mess something up or do well. You never know. And then past that, I went to Minneapolis, went to Europe, and I just don't know if I would have done those things and pushed myself without the other things happening. Like I just think that gave me less fear professionally because I was like, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to be the stuff that happened to me already. And I feel that to this day, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, tell you what, me and Kay were just talking about this, like being a single mom is like so hard. Like so hard, but I do feel like it makes me just overall better at everything else I do because you just absolutely have to be ruthless at prioritization and have skill sets around things that you never ever knew you needed to have, and you are super clear on your priorities because you just can't afford to be otherwise. And inefficiencies in any place in my life are just not tolerated. Katie knows this. Like people make fun of me. I know you think my house looks crazy right now, but like I have like 5S my house. I have labels. I have secondary containers. It's like my brain is going all the time. My house cannot be that. Like I cannot do that. And so I think, I do think those things have been like the kind of who knew. I would have never said all those things would have happened. I never would have said I've been where I am today, living in Minneapolis on a podcast, like doing all that. And so I lost the question, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Okay. Ooh, I like this question, Katie. I was like, ooh, I'm waiting to hear what you're going to say on this one. Okay. What's the most ridiculous KPI you've ever been asked to track?
This is a funny one. I was trying to think of like ridiculous ones, and I think where I landed was there have been a couple. You realize the power of KPIs and maybe what behaviors are you really trying to incent,
I like
right?
that.
So, and I have a couple. This all happened my first. The first year on the job, I think I learned the power of KPIs. So I was like a team leader. We used to rotate shifts. Every 7 days we rotated shift. And when you came in on day shift every morning, there was like this kind of like a department meeting where you went over all the KPIs of the last 24 hours. And the person on midnight shift had to put together these packets. I mean, these packets were like 100 pages long, and you're just like print them all off. And there's got to be like, 10 copies for all the people that are in this meeting. And everybody had to do it. When you're on third shift, that was your job. And then on first shift, you come in and like you have to actually present all three shifts then at this meeting. And I had just swung back on to first shift, so I hadn't seen anything. And I don't even remember what KPI it was, to be honest, but something had been trending off and the plant manager was there. And he was like, what is this? Like, this thing has been trending off for 24 hours. Are we going to just run the whole plant like this? And it made me reflect quickly on like, oh shoot, like you're just sometimes like signing off on these things without maybe really understanding what they were. And what he identified quickly was we were having basically massive temperature issues, which is kind of a big deal in the brewing process. So, anyways, that was one. So, really understanding the
I was
KPIs and
gonna
why.
say, don't you
Go
love
ahead.
that when the report goes out, you don't look at it and you're like, what? So I was like,
What?
Courtney, what is that?
I
Thank
don't.
you. Thank
I
you
don't
for that.
know. I don't know. 22. I don't know anything.
I don't know. All right. Don't know.
It seemed okay. The other two that I think about, one was an official KPI, one was not. One was they started tracking by shift. Basically, we call it clean in place, so these CIP
Mm-hmm.
loops. And what was happening was they wanted to make sure these things were happening on time, so we didn't lose basically what could be production time. But the operators were incented by like the number of CIP loops that they did. So they were like recleaning things.
They're like, yes.
So
Ding,
they were
ding,
like,
ding.
click, 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 click. I'm going to reclean this. So
I love that.
it was a really good one. It took about a month to realize like what was happening, but it was like the power of incentives. So I thought that was a good one. It did. It just made me laugh. Like there was just certain things you do. I had one
Mm.
manager and he was really big on the supervisor should be out on the floor at all times. And so sometimes, and this is kind of a catchy thing that he would do, so it kind of served him right in the end. He would call down to the supervisor's office and almost kind of held it against you if you answered the phone because you should have been, he was kind of testing to see if you were
So
out on
no
the
one
floor.
answers now.
Because nobody ever answered the phone. So anyways,
I love
those
that.
are some ones where you just have to think about like making sure you understand the why behind your KPIs and what
I
behaviors
like
are
the
you
button
really
on the CIP.
trying to
That's a
incent.
good
Yeah, that
one.
one was funny. That was funny. Okay. Here's one for you. Back to
Ooh.
KPIs. Cost or service?
Okay. So I feel like Sabrina covered this in her episode as well. I believe in most situations, now it depends on, there is context that is required, but I would say servicing is first and then cost is second. In the generalizations of, I think when you have good service, you're going to get all the benefits and it will help you with your costs, especially if you have some fixed costs that you need to take some pounds across, some volume, some cases across. But it's always going to be an and, to be really honest. And I do think, so don't hold, like Courtney said, like, no,
You're going to get some feedback on Monday at
I
work.
know, like Courtney said, service at all costs. That is not true. One thing I talk about is cost to serve. And you have to figure out for your organization what you can afford. Because there are numbers where it's like, I could service you at 98% OTIF, but we can't afford that. So, we're going to figure something else out. So I think this is where customer segmentation comes into play. We talk about service segmentation, but ultimately, if you're driving service and cases and volume, that's going to drive revenue and drive distribution, which is something we all love to see. So I think that's my answer for today. It could change later. All right, Katie. I like this question a lot too. I was like, these are such good questions. I told Katie, I was like, this was like a free script. Like we didn't have to do anything but show up and answer questions. Okay, so one day we should get one of the listeners to come on and interview us. That'd be
That would be
awesome.
fun. All right.
Season 4. Okay, would you rather be a demand or supply planner? I'm waiting to hear this. I'm interested.
So I think it's kind of fun. I think I'd rather, so to be clear, in real life, I've never done either one.
You're like, I don't know.
Watch out, guys. Here I come. I think demand planning. And I think it's
Mm,
because similar to you, grew up in the manufacturing space and didn't really get exposure to demand and supply planning until much later in my career. And I was fascinated by it. And I think it's data, it's analytics, and it's people and behaviors. Like you're really trying to figure out what your consumers are going to buy like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And I did not appreciate, I think that planning is like the brains in the
mm,
supply chain.
preach. Yes.
What that comes up with is going to dictate everything else in our
Mm,
supply chain. And so I think being at the start of that and doing the demand planning would be fun.
I
I don't know
like it.
if
That was
my
my
demand
guess.
planning team would want me in there,
They
but
would be like, please don't do this. All right.
all right. For you, hardest lesson learned on personal import or export when living the big life overseas. I like how they called it the big life
I
for
know.
you.
I think, I think living out of the country, and Katie did as well. Oh gosh, it was just, yeah, hard. It was just, I think underestimating. I had moved in the U.S. many, many times. I was like, I can move to Switzerland just fine. And then when you realize it's like 3 months before you get your stuff, and there was no Amazon. I mean, I was just like, how do you guys live? Like, what are you doing? So I think there's the complexities of country to country, um, and everybody having different customs, guidelines. Everything is different. I do think personally and professionally that that's a different capability from like I always remember like not whatever thing is going to work in France is not going to work in Germany, is not going to work in Spain. Like your brain has to really think through solutions differently. And I do think diversity is amplified
Mm,
there because I think our version of diversity in the US was so different than what was
yeah.
diverse there. And I as a woman of color, I kind of thought I know diversity and I was like, no, this is like real differences in who people are and language. So I just think underestimating all the complexities and thinking that the skill set I had or my knowledge that I brought from the US was going to be helpful there. So that's my short answer on that one.
Love it.
Okay, I love this question. Favorite mode of travel? Train, rickshaw, which I appreciate rickshaw, plane, jump seat, or automobile?
This one, I laughed when I saw it. I'm going to go with plain jump seat, and I have a story, and I think it's a fun one. My dad was in the military. My mom is originally from England, so overseas. So getting a family of six overseas is expensive, right? And so you could fly on a military aircraft, and it's called Space Available. And it literally means it's a big military cargo airplane. And if there is space available, I kind of love how they're optimizing the logistics here. If there is space available on that military aircraft, you can fly. And so at
Is
the
it
time,
like a seat or are you just like kind of
I'm gonna get to
okay,
that.
okay. I was like, I feel like this isn't a seat.
So what they would do is you had these big, huge cargo airplanes, so no windows, like it's a military aircraft. And sometimes if there was space, they would strap down like what looked like airline seats, but like you're looking
Stop
at
it.
cargo. I'm not kidding you. And then if they didn't have a room, you sat on the web, like the jump seat, like the red seats that the web seats
Okay,
that
okay. It's a
line
seat.
the
Okay,
it's like a bench and it lines
okay.
the side of the airplane. And we would go down to the mess hall, you get a box lunch,
Oh,
and
okay.
then you got on the flight, you got a wool blanket because it was really cold, and you got earplugs. But
Wow.
it was kind of, I mean, it was super long and you just kind of like, and it was slow, right? Because they're not about like, we got to get there in 6 hours. It was,
Like when we get
people
there, we get
can
there.
see when we get there, we get there. But we were always trying to get to the UK and it was wherever the flights were going. And if they were going over to Europe, we were on that flight. And then my aunties and cousins would kind of come meet us wherever. But we got to see so many places.
That's
And we looked
awesome.
like the Von Trapp family. Like it was like each kid got one backpack and like that was it. And I do. I think it was a lot of adventure and fun.
We got to have Katie's mom on the podcast. She is like, oh my
She's
gosh,
pretty
she
funny.
tickles me.
Should
Like
both our
she,
moms on.
oh, well, we would not be able to do live. I know, Katie. I was like, high five the saying shoot. I was like, look at you,
Look at me.
look at you,
Verbal discipline.
verbal
Verbal
discipline.
discipline. So yeah, I
Oh, I
would
love
say
that.
the jumpsuit one was fun. And then of course I love a rickshaw living in India. They're called autos there for like auto rickshaw. And me and the kids and David would take those around the
I don't
neighborhood
think I've
all the
ever done a
time.
rickshaw. I need to add that to my list.
I mean, I wouldn't get on a highway in one. Some people do, but around the neighborhood and stuff like that, especially if you've gone shopping or if you've got like they were little when we lived there, and so pop them in the rickshaw and like let's go. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So
We need to plan an India trip. That's what we
I
need in our
know
life.
that
Yes.
would be fun.
Okay.
Okay. Courtney, for our last question, what is your favorite thing to do on summer Fridays? And for our listeners, Courtney and I are really lucky. We get half days on Fridays. It's a
Tell
really
them
nice
why.
perk and benefit. It's because we live in the tundra, I think. In the summer, basically from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we have half day Fridays at our office, which are lovely. I do think it's partly Minnesota with like the cabin culture. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people head up north.
Katie and I are not a part of the cabin culture.
We're not a part of the cabin culture. We do usually go to a cabin once or twice over the
Yeah.
summer, but not people are like they go every weekend.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you like to do on your summer Fridays?
Okay. So one of my friends, she said, I'm not a very like, outdoorsy person. She's like, you're outside Z person. So like, I love a good patio. I don't need to be in the nature, but if I can look at nature, so I would say like my favorite summer Friday activity is finding a nice. Minneapolis loves patios too in the summer too. We love a patio.
Hmm.
So a nice patio, a nice glass of sparkling rosé because it's going to be warm out, and just I usually try to meet some friends, and we just like because the kids are still in school or camp because we get our half days and they're still there, so we just enjoy our time and leisurely eat and have like a nice quiet lunch, and that is like probably not quiet, but a nice lunch. If you realize, me and Katie are loud, so we're not like quiet people, but I don't know. It's just like one of my I don't know what that love language is, but I love like good food, good wine, good people, good conversation. And that is like to me a perfect kind of Friday, like summer Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially here. The weather is usually just beautiful. So I
Right
did that
now is
yesterday,
dreary.
actually. I know it's a little bit dreary, but I still sat outside yesterday.
Did you? Good for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have a dog now, so I walk all the time. So
You do. I feel like every time I call you, you're out there with Lisa. And people interrupt our conversation because they want to talk to this dog.
I know I have the most popular child and dog in the building. It is funny because, so for our listeners, I was anti-animal dog. I've never had a dog, never had anything. I think I had like a gerbil as a kid and then escaped and then got sick and died. Like that was the extent of my animal. And then I had made an agreement with my daughter that if she stopped sucking her finger, she could get a dog. And I honestly, Katie and I was like, she's not going to stop and we're never getting a dog. And I had forgot all about it. And then last summer, she like looked at me and she's like, "I want a dog. I'm gonna stop." But the rule was 6 months. So yes. So anyway, 6 months went by. Now we have a dog. Now it's my dog, and I call her my emotional support animal because now I'm like full in on the dog. Like my best friend was like, "I think you just like going out walking with a dog because it just like gives you a chance to commune and like I listen to podcasts. I like walk forever." And she's a small dog, so she can't walk very long. So now she has a dog stroller so that I can go
No,
on.
you didn't.
I did.
No, you
She
didn't.
did.
I did not
I
know.
gotta send you the. I gotta send you the picture. I gotta send you.
You're officially that person.
I
I feel like
am.
I don't even know you anymore.
I know. My college friends called me and they were like, "We saw your Facebook with Issa in a stroller." I was like, "We can go on long walks now." I have a stroller. It's super cute. I'm like officially, but I still don't do no kissing in the mouth. I find that to be gross. No judgment for others, just my opinion. And you cannot you sleep in your crate. Like everyone's like, "I give you a year." I'm like, "No." I'm like I love my bed. It's my sanctuary. I'm not cuz I feel like it'd be uncomfortable. I don't know. Who knows? But yes, I'm full on. I have a stroller because she only walks for like 30 minutes. So if I want to go on like a long walk, I'm not going to carry her. So then,
That'd be
she's
too far. So you got to get a stroller.
getting a stroller. It's actually very economical on Amazon. All right. So, what else? Okay. I think we went through
We did.
all
Those are
the
all the questions.
questions. So thank you guys for joining us and listening. We just also wanted to just say thank you for everybody that submitted the questions. They were great questions, and we just appreciate you engaging with us. So, we'll be back next week, and I think Crystal did a little bit of like a teaser.
Yeah, she did.
She was like, "We're gonna have one of our first male allies." I know it's like ally to accomplice or whatever the word is, but we're gonna have our first male guest, Josh Chow, who's the CSTO of McCormick, on. So we've had a lot of people say, "Okay, we love the women, but when are you gonna have a male ally on?" So Josh is our first ally, and he's just been a great friend and mentor to Katie and I.
Both of
So
us.
we
Yeah.
are super excited to have him on the podcast coming up. So thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. See you.